Wonderful. I'm so happy that you're all here and we can meet and dedicate some time to the most profound teaching in all of Buddhism, the most important teaching in all of Buddhism. So that will be very good. We will do meditation as we always do. And you can do according to your daily object, whatever that is. If you meditate on shamatha and the breath, that's perfect. You can pay attention to your breath and the rise and fall of the lower navel, here, abdomen, or like the tip of the nose. If you meditate on a deity, if you like to meditate on Tara, on Chenrezig, or Buddha, what have you, you can meditate on this. If you're even more advanced than meditating on deity, then you can meditate on the nature of mind, which is luminous clarity. So instead of paying attention to the content of thoughts all the time, like watching a movie and getting scared and jumping up and down, you're looking at the light behind the projector that sends out these images. So you're resting and relaxing into the natural illumination of mind, what's known as basic goodness, right? So it doesn't matter what's on the screen, you're looking at the light behind. So that means you just relax and try not to get caught up in thoughts, and your object is consciousness itself. So those are kind of the three main objects of concentration. The breath, visualizing a Buddha, or your mind. So you can choose one and see what happens during it. So I'll set this timer here on my phone, and we can go into meditation. Set for 15 minutes. Is that good? Yeah. During this time, if you need to do anything, please do it. Just do it mindfully or kindfully, as the book out there says. And what's any last piece of advice I can say? Turn off your cell phone.
Not vibration either.
Yeah.
Your mind will go there.
Yes. What did I say? The first person to achieve enlightenment in Tibet was a woman. And her name was Yeshe Tsogyal. So you don't have to be a monk or a man or to become enlightened. So that's nice. Nice to know that. Just to think that you have this precious human life, and we'll get into that opportunity right now to meditate. You have everything you need, whether you're male or female or for wherever you're from. You can wake up. So I wish you good luck, and please return to your meditation object throughout the time. Every so often, taxes. I have mine that I go through, but anyway, don't do that. Thank you all so much. Welcome. Sorry. No, it's okay, you've come. It's good to have you. Thank you. Yes, in the future you can come in any time. Just come in quietly and then just sit down and meditate.
I didn't want to interrupt.
No problem.
I really wanted to though.
Yeah, I'm happy you're here. Yeah, sitting in meditation with our brothers and sisters of Dharma like this is so rewarding, so rich. Sometimes there's nothing I can say that can match up to me keeping my mouth shut, so it's a very blissful experience for me to sit with you all. I get a lot of good energy from you, so thank you. We're studying my root guru's text, Practicing the Path. Pretty much everything I teach comes from this text. And so this is a book that's about the whole stages of the path to enlightenment according to the Dalai Lama's tradition, of which we're a part. So it's something that's been practiced for a very long time, in the exact same way, everywhere it's gone. So it has this beautiful sense of lineage, We may make chai tea in India. We may make, what's that called in England? Earl Grey. And in America we may make Starbucks. But it all depends on having water. And so these teachings are the water that have been there the whole time. Maybe it'll be expressed a little different in that way, how we show, but the teaching's the same. The content must be the same for it to be the Dharma. So we want something that has proven to wake people up. We want something that has proven to end human neurosis and unnecessary anxiety and paranoia. We want something that's proven to do that. Please. Because we don't want to experiment with Frankenstein spiritual Dharma. We want to have something that's been proven for 2,600 years to pacify anxiety and fear and what have you. So that's one of the key points of putting an authentic Buddhist lineage in Miami. Point of being here is to do that. Same teachings the Dalai Lama meditated on to face his pain in life, the Chinese overtaking his country. Same meditations we'll do to face the stressors in all our lives, you know. Something like that is a proven long-term lineage that we're very proud of. Same time, please, we should never get patriotic. Because Buddhism, any religion can become corrupt and can hurt people. And ours, better than yours, is no good. The world has enough human suffering created through religion already. So the basic human good heart is the point of all of this. That's what we're doing. So if we ever get off track from the good heart, that means we're probably not practicing Buddhism or Christianity or Islam or Judaism properly. Whatever our historical family tradition is. So just wanted to put that out there at the outset. So, we are on the section called the manner of generating the bodhicitta mind. So, in my understanding, the Dalai Lama has taught this text for the last 40 years, every year at New Year, March, February, Tibetan New Year, Chinese New Year time. So he escaped Tibet with one text in hand, and it was the Lam Rim, you know. So it's something that he treasures greatly, and it's something that you go over through a lifetime. It's like learning to make a spaceship with NASA and then fly to the moon and come back. So I don't want people to have a wrong attitude that maybe by my talk tonight, that's it. That's all they need. It's a push button and we're done. It's going to be a while. But we can settle into the journey. And I like it because it's the Buddha keeping us off the streets by having lots and lots of teachings and meditations to do. That's the joke we have. So many practices. Anyway, so here we go. The first teaching is the 4 bases. I have notes saved on the phone here. The first teaching is, before that, common mind, uncommon mind, to develop bodhicitta. What is bodhicitta? Tonight's class is about bodhicitta, awakened heart, awakened mind, the mind of the Buddhas, bodhicitta. It means you are dedicated to your own enlightenment so that you can help and enlighten all other people. So it's a one mind with 2 dimensions. This is a big theme in Tibetan Buddhism, one mind, 2 dimensions. Whenever you see like the provocative imagery of a man and woman in union in Vajrasattva, things like that, it means one mind with 2 dimensions. It means that wisdom and compassion should be in one mind. And here in bodhicitta, it means more than that too. It means that your dedication to your own enlightenment is the primary mind, and the secondary mind is so that you can enlighten all beings. And we'll learn to understand why that is as we study, why it's not the other way around. Tonight we'll hopefully get some answer for you about the definition of bodhicitta, the causes of realizing bodhicitta, and so on. I don't know why I'm pounding my fists. The first one is common mind, wishing to genuinely help but overpowered by distraction. So we want to help others. We're dedicated. We have this attitude, I want to help. You know, yes, that's a very good, a pure intention. It's better than wanting to hurt other people. But normally in daily life, we're what? Distracted. You know, I've been using this term a lot recently. Like Christianity, we have Satan. In Buddhism, we have distraction. So being distracted is the downfall of the meditator. If happiness exists in the present moment and you're distracted, then that's your downfall. So we want to help people. We want to do good things in the world, but our mind is like this. It's everywhere, up and down, every day, totally different. Million different emotions and personalities. Every day. I feel like this all the time. I don't know what my nationality is. I don't know what country I'm in right now. I don't know what... I feel sometimes I go through that one, when it just feels distracted and confused sometimes. So that's good that I want to help, but it's like, kind of like putting it on a crazy foundation. So it's good. The next one is the uncommon or the profound development of the aspiration here is saying when you have renunciation, when you renounce the cherishing or narcissism, grasping at yourself, when you have an attitude that you're going to renounce the self, cherishing, the grasping, that's a great foundation, renunciation. And then if you have meditation like we did here, and you develop a stable basis in your mind of calm, that's an amazing basis. And then upon that, if you have insight into reality deeper and deeper and deeper through Vipassana or analytical meditation, those together, then you develop compassion, then you develop bodhicitta, wow. Now you're cooking with gas. Because you get subtle joy, it's almost like bliss. It's not technically the Buddhist definition of bliss. That has one definition and one definition only. But joy, you feel this subtle pliancy or suppleness. When you meditate a lot, calming your mind, you start to feel bouncy. You start to feel light. Wow. I might need to go dance tonight on Collins Avenue. Wow, I'm feeling good. So something like that, like where you feel through your meditation, you're not so tight anymore. You're not so anxious. You're not so stressed. You're more light. Of course you get this from yoga as well. And so we want to become more purified and more gentle. Sometimes you're around people who you can't even tell if they're real. It's like a Star Wars, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like some of my masters are like that. They're almost like ethereal. They're human beings, but they're so like light. It's almost like you can put your hand through their body. It's very strange. And they say they can do that. Great masters can put their hands through walls and leave imprints. There's all over Tibet, hundreds of those. Once people reach a certain level of meditation, they can affect physical material reality in the subtle atomic level of reality, because the mind is the most powerful instrument in the world. And so if you believe that you're existing in a certain reality, then you experience that. But if you watch The Matrix, and at the end of the Matrix film, you see reality differently, that means your perception is shifted, you can actually do different things. So that goes from like these far out, almost like LSD experiences we're talking about here, to like far out acts of compassion. That's also very nice too. Like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our leader, is like, he's able to shift his perception into a way of 24 hours of love, of radiating unconditional kindness and power to benefit suffering beings. So that's an unconventional act based on an unconventional view of seeing the world differently, So once you have more meditation, right, more practice, then you can really help others. You can really have compassion. You can really have a warm heart. Because it's not like, oh, I want to help others. Oh, but look at that. Oh, but look at that. That shiny object there. Oh, look at that. Oh, but look at that. So that's how it normally is. Attention deficit compassion. That's how we're doing ADC. I can give a new Western diagnosis. We can create drugs for it. No, this new diagnosis is ADC, attention deficit compassion. Means well, but it's not fully developed compassion. Fully developed, we need a stable mind and meditation. So you try every day to have some continuity in your meditation like we were doing there. Stabilize the mind. And then, then you can go. So that's the first part. Next part is that there's 4 conditions that are going to help you with bodhicitta. The first ones are seeing or hearing Buddha's qualities. Some people feel that. Like, okay, I want to develop compassion. That's nice. But now I go see somebody who's really amazing, who's really dedicating their lives to others, and then I say, oh, I want that. I really want that, and I just saw it, that it's real. I give this example a lot because when I'm with my teachers, I can't pretend that it's in some ancient book, that being that kind of person is just like a fairy tale. You know, it sounds like a myth. You know, oh, maybe Milarepa, or maybe at the time of Muhammad, or maybe at the time of Jesus, but not now. Nobody could ever behave like that altruistic now. And then you see it with your eyes and you're in trouble. Because that person just did it, right? Just behaved that way. So, I always give the example when Lam Zopo Rinpoche would come visit us in Portland, he'll give a teaching for 8 hours straight. After the 8 hours, there'll be a line of 100 people who want to talk to him. And one by one, they come up to him and offer him different things. Katas, flowers, all different things. Sometimes people will offer the ashes of their husband who died that day. And then he'll do a ceremony for that person and just stop everything with 100 people in line. And he'll do a whole ceremony blessing that person's mind and ashes and sending positive energy to them. Then the next person comes with the animal. So he does that for hours. And then after he gets off the throne, then he walks from the throne to the car outside. And that takes at least an hour. Because there's all these other people who weren't inside who are waiting to see him outside, and he stops with each one. So he has to have all these people trying to be bodyguards, you know. It's like you don't know. Who is this famous person? Is that Ronaldo? What? Pushing everyone away? What's that? No, it's almost over Rinpoche. It's like almost like he has to have monk bodyguards, you know, because there's just so much.
The monk bodyguard.
Because so he can't do anything. His attendants are pulling their hair out. We have to catch this plane. Now he's been banned from many planes, Lam Zopa Rinpoche. Many airlines won't accept him buying ticket anymore, you know?
I know.
Because he's so late. They're just trying to go from the car. It's crazy. And it's so funny when you watch it happening in front of you because the people, they get so much from it. They get so much from it. These are total strangers. I went to the airport. My wife and I are flying somewhere. Lam Zopa Rinpoche happens to have gone to that same airport. So he's there and we're watching this. All these people congregate around him who don't know anything about Buddhism or anything about who he is. So what is it that they feel? What they feel is what we're talking about tonight, bodhicitta, his heart of enlightenment, that attitude, that compassion is so, it's like the heat in the Miami summer. You cannot deny that it's hot outside. Well, I don't know. For me, it's very hot here in the summer. So like that, you're just around him and you feel the warmth. It's wow, it just hits you. You know, you can't escape it. So that's the first thing that inspires you to become like that is by seeing it with your own eyes. And then the other is reading the scriptures. And I encourage everyone to read the great stories of the yogis and the yoginis of the past and their actions. Singing, dancing, benefiting beings through, you know, yoga, meditation, teaching throughout the centuries. All the unique ways that the great masters have done this, you know. Reading those stories of the life stories of the masters, it gives you inspiration when you're bored and depressed and you can't be around great teachers or things like that. You can read that. There's many biographies. Masters of Enchantment is one of my favorites. But there's many biographies. And then the next thing you could do is to listen to a lot of teachings. So you're very fortunate here in Miami. There's many places all over the world where there's no teachers at all, and they can only watch videos and listen to tapes and things, and that's okay, but it's hard, you know, it's not the same. So you're very blessed to have these completely profound teachers, completely qualified, Venerable Rabina, Venerable Amy, John Landau, Jackie, Akili, all these wonderful long-time practitioners that come and keep showering you with the teachings. That's great. So one of these things is just like, if you hear it enough, it might start to make sense for you. It might start to click. You're just being bombarded. Compassion, compassion, over and over. Next one is appreciation of what this medicine can do for you and has done for others. So we're talking about taking people who hate life, taking people who are bored, who are narcissistic or angry or frustrated, and turning them inside out. This is all about turning the heart inside out. Buddhist practice should make you vulnerable. It should make you raw. I feel that. The higher the practices my teacher takes me on, the less self that I feel comfortable with. Like the less normal I feel. I ask my teachers, can you change my meditation? Can you help me? Because I'm feeling really shaky. And they'll say, oh, good, good, that's a really good sign. Yeah, when you really know who you are and what you're doing, it's bad news for the early Buddhist, because that means that you're just kind of on the same habitual patterns. You need to go into a vulnerable area that you haven't experienced before if you truly want to grow. So I feel like my skin is crawling sometimes from these meditations my teacher forces me to do every day. I asked him if I could take a break from it. I had one meditation he's had me do since 2006. makes me crazy, this meditation. And he let me have 6-month break last year. And now I have to go back. So that means those great high lamas like Yangtze Rinpoche, Geshe-la, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, they can see the minds of the disciples and tell you what you need. And it's not always what you might want. It's interesting how that operates, you know, it could be a little different. So that's how it's been for me. It's like when I can trust my teacher and trust the advice that he's prescribing for me and take the medicine, then things start to happen. Should be more raw, should be more vulnerable. Object isn't to make myself more hardened to life and more tough in a neurotic way or something like that. It's supposed to make me more open. So becoming more open means ego is unhappy, right? Ego likes to be shut down and closed around a very few set of ideas and just go in circles around those ideas. I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the worst, I'm the worst, I'm the worst, like that, you know. So then instead of that, you open the heart, turn it inside out. And then you start to feel 360 degrees around you, wherever you are. And then it's strange. So I have this very interesting experience. When I come to Miami, I have some food before class. I go to Books and Books. And whenever I sit down there, this woman who's been bringing me food over these months, she's like, "What are you doing here? It doesn't seem like you're doing the same thing everybody else is doing here on Lincoln Road right now. What are you doing?" And I say, "Oh, I'm eating before I go to this Buddhist class. And so I like to meditate here and just open my mind to this experience and feel peace within all of the activity." And she said, "Okay." That's interesting.
So what do you do? Do you sit in a certain way?
No, I'm just being myself there, and I guess that's awkward. Not just like, or I'm just sitting there eating in my mind, and so I'm trying to keep to myself, not draw attention to myself. But she noticed. And so that was, this has happened some weeks, and then this week I noticed I came and she had Buddhist mala on her wrist. And she said, "Oh, you made me think a little bit about looking into these things," because I showed her, because I'm always reading my teacher's book before I come to class. So she says, "What are you reading?" And I said, "Oh, my teacher's book. I'm trying to keep my mind on not spending too much money here right now." And so, this is, you know, so we've developed some friendship over this time, and it's beautiful, you know, it's beautiful, like even in that context of just having a meal. Bodhicitta mind, just reading about bodhicitta can actually change your experience. Your life can change, your mind can change, it all depends. So yeah, people like her are a very big inspiration to me because it shows that reality is changeable, interdependent. It doesn't have to be like, "Oh, okay, I'm depressed about my conception about Miami today," or "I'm excited," you know. Wherever you live, we always get tired of it and find what's wrong with it, you know, and that's normal. We all do that. But it's also true that we can have, I have this great shirt that says, "I found my happy place, Florida." It's like meditation, you know, always trying to like, okay, this is it. Because the mind is always dissatisfied. No matter if you're in wherever you think is the best place, you'll sooner or later, dissatisfaction will creep in and start criticizing and it takes over. So that's the third thing, appreciate the medicine. And another way to develop aspiration to be compassionate is to think of the Kali Yuga, the degenerate age. They call this all the time in Hinduism and Buddhism. Means like that if people are sometimes going to be more and more like self-centered and more aggressive, and the traffic is more aggressive and there's more violence and there's more problems, you know, life getting more and more attention deficit and painful. In other words, you look out at the news, you look out at your life, and you see there's tremendous pain everywhere. And that tremendous pain everywhere inspires you to like meditate. It inspires you to do something with your day that could make another person's life better, you know, to make the society a little bit better. So all the people here are doing such amazing things, benefiting the society in so many ways. I'm grateful to you. But you can also, you know, we can always evolve. We can always keep adding more to that of different ways. So it takes a lot to ignore the suffering that exists in the world. We develop a lot of wonderful alcoholic beverages, a lot of very nice ganja. There's lots of wonderful clothes and cars. But you know, basically, like according to Buddha, the human realm is in the nature of suffering. And so it's more like we should be surprised when there's another turn to it, when people are like really breaking through that and recognizing that the injustice in our society doesn't need to be there. It's an unnecessary man-made problem. It's not something created by a higher being that we should have all this disease and misery and violence. So we see, when we have a brave heart, we see that. When I went to India, I went to the place where Lord Buddha meditated for the 6 years, traveling around, before he became enlightened. And one of those places is a shrine. And there's so many people without limbs and stuff, like leprosy, so much leprosy. And then I went into the bathroom in the main area, and there's somebody is dead there, laying face down. And young children begging, and, so profound, the pain and the suffering that was there. It was, wow. I hadn't seen anything like that before. Then when I went to India, it was a completely different level. So that's what Lord Buddha saw when he left the palace 2,600 years ago. He had a very beautiful life and a beautiful sheltered existence, but then he left. And then he was in shock. But like the Dalai Lama, after facing the adversity of being occupied by the Chinese and his people killed and things, he decided to respond with kindness and with meditation and with joy, particularly joy. That's profound, right? That you could respond to the adversity of life with joy. I don't want anyone here to feel that Buddhism is so depressing. It talks about suffering and death and everything else. And just like, great God, thanks a lot. I have a TV to make me feel like that. So no, you meditate on it so you're not caught in the mistake of it. If you know what the problem is, you transcend it, right? Like if you get how reality is set up, you can make good choices. So that's the other motivation. Another thing I wanted to talk about is establishing the Buddha as a valid person. That is a subject that comes up a lot. We have this beautiful image that Jackie gave you all here, this golden Buddha. And so you're establishing Buddha as a valid person. Why? Because you want to believe that you too could do that. You don't want to think that he was just a myth or something like that. You want to think that he was somebody whose mother passed away when he was born, whose father was trying to protect him because of that sorrow, and who saw human suffering and wanted to make the world a better place. And so that you too can evolve by facing the challenges in your life. If you have questions about your suffering, if you have questions about your humanity, if you have questions about what's going on, that's the beginning of the spiritual path. That's how Buddha left. Buddha did not go on the spiritual search with answers or with faith. He went with questions. Science. He went as a scientist, kind of, to see what is the nature of what's happening. So we try to think of Buddha as valid. Valid because of his compassion, valid because of his insights, valid because of what he's this radiation of love he's put into place for all these years. He's the founder of monasteries on earth. The first monasteries on earth are from Lord Buddha. And he was trying to create models of society that were based on compassion. So it's a radical idea, for sure. And there were death threats upon the Buddha's life, just as there were with Lord Jesus. And so, Buddha was a real person who went through serious issues in his life. And now we've deified him and made him into a god. But like Judaism and Islam, at the beginning of Buddhism, you could only show like the feet of the Buddha. Not supposed to show any body or face or any form that could represent the ultimate. So if you go into a mosque, you can't see Muhammad's image, or it's not like Moses is the main image in the synagogue. So like that, it was that way in Buddhism, but then we just got excited. And we started to make lots of drawings of Buddha and lots of paintings of Buddha. And so it's easy to think that he wasn't a human being and look at him as a god and all these kind of things. It's a little bit dangerous, but I love the images, so I'm grateful they made that choice. And so, Don't take away my tankas. Don't take away my paintings, please. Yeah. So, if you establish Buddha as valid, it means you can become valid. That you can grow slowly, one day at a time, you know? From, okay, I love my children, and that's the best expression of my true love, is open heart, I would sacrifice anything for them. And then I'm going to expand it a little bit further, try to reach out to my coworkers, and a little bit more to people out in the world, you know, gradually. That you could eventually see that you could cease the defilements, you could cease the confusions and achieve the state of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a realization, right? We have a realization, we know how to drive a car. We've realized that. Bodhicitta, this mind of enlightenment, is a realization that should come to a point of being spontaneous, that never wavers at all, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche. It doesn't go up or down, it's a perfected state. It's a state of mind that is unwavering and constantly brings you blessings. So it is the most important point of the Buddhist path. It is the heart of the Dharma. It is what the parts before it and after it in the study are supporting. So you should, like, this is the anchor of all Dalai Lama speaks about, is the warm heart, the good heart, wherever he goes. And it sounds simplistic, and it sounds like he's repeating himself all the time, everywhere he goes. But when you really read into it, you see, yeah, well, maybe he does need to repeat it. I've turned on my television for 20 seconds, and I can see that the world is not living in a state of compassion for others, compassion for enemy, compassion for other and opposite, you know. But more so living in division and dividing people in the worst possible ways. so, you know, he needs to repeat it, in other words. That one is very true. Buddha should be established as a valid person. So what are the obstacles to the development of this compassionate mind? The most important obstacles are anger and vengeance, you know. These are really, really big. If compassionate is, I want to cherish this suffering being and take care of them, anger doesn't really have any particular role to play in that one. So, in other words, mutually exclusive, fire and water, these two. So the cooling water of bodhicitta, and then the fire of anger. So if your mind is constantly disturbed in anger, there's no way to develop compassion, real compassion. It's just impossible. So we have to pinpoint aggression, and you find a word that works for you. Aversion, aggression, anger, rage, whatever you want to call it, find the word that works for you and target it. And understand that this is the obstacle to developing compassion. I can't be having compassion for someone at work, someone in the family, while I'm angry at them. That's not the same thing. We have enlightened tough love, which Geshe-la was very famous for, like Hayagriva energy. It means you're tough love, right? Like you're compassionately angry. So that's a different thing. That means enlightenment will sometimes be forceful to move people out of the way who are doing wrong things to hurt themselves, motivated by love, not motivated by hatred. So a few people on this earth may consider Rabina, Venerable Rabina, also in that category. Very strong and tell you how to practice, and she cuts through the delusion forcefully. So she's like a, tough love representative also. And so we need that. Great masters like her are there to help people wake up who take gentleness as a weakness. Many people take it as a weakness if people are gentle, So when you have Venerable Rabina come, they won't take it as a weakness. She will make sure they get the point. It was beautiful.
Yeah, because I was just having a conversation with a friend today who's studying a lot of Buddhism, but it's struggling with boundaries. And I was trying to pull from Rabina's conversation, saying, no. In Buddhism, you set boundaries. It's not about because I think there's a confusion, compassion,
doormat.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So
yes.
I was like, he's like, no, you haven't read as much as I did. I was like, I'm pretty sure that Buddha was telling different answers to the same question to people. That's where I go back to, if two people ask the same question, he would answer exactly what they were capable of listening to and understanding. So that's a boundary in itself.
Yes.
Because, otherwise, if you explain the same, which I try to follow, I want treat everybody equally, so I tell everybody the same thing, but then I get frustrated because they don't understand. And, you want to be socialist, but there is So can you explain a little bit the tough love versus the boundary? Where the confusion can happen in Buddhism.
Yeah.
Doormat or
Yeah. This comes up every class because it's a big issue. It's very important. The vow of refuge is first, and then we practice these advanced things of compassion through the Bodhisattva vow, which we'll discuss this night. The refuge vow means the transcendence of codependency is how I love to present it. So refuge means be true to yourself. There is no teacher in the world who is above the Buddha's law. And there's certainly no crazy person in the world who is above the Buddha's law. but in other words, what's so beautiful about these teachings, how Dalai Lama presents, is that he has no power to go against the words of the Buddha, and the Buddha presents many different teachings. So he's not above the law of Buddhism. So that means be true to yourself. Be true to what you believe in, and what you know to be true is the refuge vow, and then it gradually evolved to the state of nirvana, or liberation. So personal liberation is the only foundation for Buddhism, that you are committed to not being doormat. Is the only way into Buddhism. Yeah. So if you jump to compassionate acts of selflessness and this, then you get in trouble. Go right away, yeah, and they just skip, and that happens all the time in Buddhism. But we don't want to say that Buddhism is a path that doesn't include that kind of empathy and warmth. It does. We need compassion. We have to.
But first to the self.
But first you build with refuge vow, then the Bodhisattva vow, then the Tantric vow. There's 3 stages of growth in Buddhist journey that are symbolic of what you're discussing.
Before you can fully give up.
No, you always want to have others in mind, but that if your goal is to truly help others, you're not helping them if you're not stable in your own practice of a refuge. If you're not meditated and stable in your own practice, you want to help, but it's not going so well. So it's kind of like not really helping them, it's something else.
So the vow of refuge?
Yeah, the vow of refuge is when the Lama comes, or when Venerable Ravina comes, or someone, and they give the vow, and that's the moment you make the commitment to like yourself and your own enlightenment, and that nothing on earth is going to take you away from the truth of the Buddha's teachings in that way. Not even a Buddhist teacher can transcend the teachings of the Buddha. So that's why Dalai Lama puts up pictures when teachers transcend the teachings of Buddha and saying, don't study with these people. He puts pictures outside the monastery. Yeah, because nobody is above the law of the Buddha's teachings, including the Dalai Lama. So
I have a question regarding what you were saying before. And the image that comes to me, correct me if it's wrong, is of Shiva, which is this big Buddha that has like eight limbs, and has the sword and has all these things. And it's not about anger, but it's the righteousness. Whenever it's something is not coming from love or from essence, you just totally dismiss it. It's not really attachment or anger, but you just cut it off with the sword. And that's what, you come in a point that you have the place of discernment where you know what comes from love, what is right, what your spirit feels comfortable, and what is invading that special place that is, how can you explain that? It's able probably to arise the anger. So instead of being anger, you just dismiss it, I think. No? That's the whole point. You cut off the energy without having to actually engage in any type of disturbance.
Well put. The tough love is directed towards one's own mistaken energy,
right,
primarily.
But it's mirrored. Somebody else comes with that too. Yeah.
That's great.
That's what Shiva, right?
Yes. I don't know that much about Shiva.
I mean, I don't know, but I know some,
Shiva's very great, but I haven't studied so much about Shiva.
Well, I don't know too many things. It's just a concept.
It's the meaning is important.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So that's my understanding.
Yes. Oh, that's crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to make it make sense for one's own mind that way, directly. So what are the other obstacles to developing compassion? Here's 3 that are listed. Clinging to the appearances of this life. That's number 1. Number 2, clinging to temporary pleasure. Number 3, aspirations for your own enlightenment permanently. So the first one, this one, clinging to appearances of this life, means that what you think is happening outside, when you walk around, you take to be real. You believe in it too much, you know, like everything is taken, it's so real. How things appear to my mind, and that's why it's called Kunso Dopa in Tibetan, is conventional truth, totally obscured truth. And so what appears to your consciousness is not real, and we take it as real, so we suffer. So that's why it's called like conventional reality in a bad way, that when we're using it in a bad way. That's what it means, because it exists opposite to it appears. So you see the appearances of this life and you believe in it all and you're just kind of rolling with it, but it's all like a dream. It's not actually reality itself, so you're in trouble. That will stop you from developing compassion because you're not seeing things as they are. So that's a bummer. There's something we can do about it. Second one is clinging to temporary pleasures of this life. This is a huge one. This is wow. This is the mountain of what? Wow. I don't even know if I need to say anything about this.
No.
I think we're good.
That one, yeah.
Unless you want to share.
I know.
Have any confessions to make?
Lots of confessions. Definitely. I hope I can just do like some Hail Marys.
So what do we do when we fall into the trap?
The trap of the temporary pleasure? Yeah. You can call me and give me whatever you're enjoying and I'll take it.
That's compassionate.
Compassion, let me take this for you.
So if it's given, then it doesn't count.
No, I'm just joking.
It's not.
I have to watch what I say so it doesn't get like Carl said that
What's
if you give me this right now.
So it's not attachment.
Yeah, non-attachment. So temporary pleasures distract you. And the Buddha wants you to have supreme pleasure. So don't think that it means you should be hiding in your house, you know, listening to depressing music. But it means temporary pleasure, right? You're supposed to have ultimate pleasure in Buddhism. So that ultimate pleasure goes like this, always. Only one direction, not the young boys from England. But I don't know how much I makes me think you listen to them.
I have no idea.
That's good.
No,
You should be grateful.
Yeah.
You should be grateful.
You should share yours.
They're like boy band from England, but so no, the bliss only goes in one direction if it's a.
Also one direction.
It only goes in one direction up, and then the temporary pleasures don't go in one direction up. They go like this, and they crash like a shooting star, and that's the problem with them because we get excited, like oh, I found the answer. I've got this little corner of pleasure, and as we grow older, hopefully they get more subtle. What those things are that we're attached to. When we're young, they may be very loud, but then it's like more and more subtle. But it's still the same emotional experience of suffering in the way we're relating to it. It can be a cup of coffee. It can be a cup of tea. It can be whatever. But so like, so one example is like if you have a bad attitude towards a cup of tea, you can get like all spun out mentally and emotionally around it and like get really twisted and grasping for it. You want this thing, you need this thing, you can like input all this obsession inside of this little object of a tea. Or if you have an enlightened mind, you can have as much tea as you want and it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect you like that. You can have cup after cup after. It's not outside. Buddhism is an inside job, you know. It's not really like so much the substance or the thing outside that we're worried about. It's about how your mind's attitude is toward that thing. So we all have those objects that's easy to bring onto the path, and then we have objects where it's not so easy to bring onto the path. And so working with those that aren't so easy is good. Sometimes we need total space. I can't do that object at all. Maybe not for this whole life. It's too distracting. And others, I can do that, but it has to be like gently worked with so I don't totally get distracted. So yeah, we have those temporary pleasures. Yeah, it's so hard to relate to life relaxed. And just enjoy things when they're in their right time and right moment and then let them go. You know, it's very hard for me to do that. I want to always recreate certain emotional experiences or physical experiences of substance, whatever. I want to keep going. More. Yes, and then the last one that blocks us is individual liberation, like you get obsessed with. So what we were discussing before, just about like what are boundaries in Buddhism, you know? What are they? Okay, it's about your own liberation, but if you get attached to that, then you're in trouble, and people do that. You know, you're on a spiritual path, but it's really about you, and you're actually like a jerk to everybody you see and like don't really care, but you're spiritual, you know, in quotes or something. That comes up all the time for us, you know. A sociopathic Buddhist meditator, like, you know, you're like really serious about your meditation and concentration and whatever, and you're pushing people out of the way to get there and everything. So that can happen when you're like, my liberation, my Buddhist path, my thing, you know. So we have to look out for that. Most people I know aren't really like that, but it does come up because we start with attachment, then we become Buddhists, and then we're attached, you know, to Buddhism. It's normal. But you shouldn't be attached to the Bible. You shouldn't be attached to Buddhism. You shouldn't be attached to Buddha. You shouldn't be attached to anything, because attachment is the thing that makes us miserable. So there isn't really like there isn't anything that we should be attached to, you know. Become extremist of anything. Extremist Buddhist is weird.
You should be attached, like I would call like the truth in a way, whatever feels, I don't know, it's hard to, that's like a tough word, but I don't know.
I would say no.
I mean, you have to have roots somewhere.
You do have to have roots.
So that where do you find out yourself when it's like you're not attached to nothing or anything, you know, I believe it's like something has to resonate.
Absolutely.
To have that attachment, but I don't know what it is, I mean.
Yeah, it's just a word, because we say no attachment, you know, but it just means like
I guess caring, compassion, caring.
Yeah.
Life.
Focused on, appreciating, dedicated to, but not attached. Because as soon as we're attached to our lover, then we suffocate them. Like, he or she can't live up to our expectations. And so like we love our partner, but then we get attached, and then the attached turns into like all these projections and control, and you no longer see that person as a human being. So attachment pollutes relationship in this context. So Buddha uses it as the opposite of love. So in the West, we use attachment sometimes to mean love, and we're connecting. It has a different connotation. So it's just the use of the word ducha, Tibetan word. It means poison. It means like attachment is a poison in this context, where you can't love your husband or wife or partner because you're attached. So that's confusing. That's confusing. And then the next one, the 8 worldly dharmas. We talk about this all the time. Do people know this humiliating teaching? This is that we're all we're all on this yo-yo roller coaster. No, it's good. This teaching is so humiliating. Lama Zopa, the great Buddha, who in the picture, who I talk about all night, he has this teaching all the time that he didn't ever know anything about meditation until he was 20 years old. Because of the 8 worldly dharmas, he said. He said that everything he had done was not Buddhism. Even though he was celibate, he was a monk, he was meditating in caves, he said none of that was Buddhism, because he was attached to the comfort of this life and the outcomes of this life with hope and fear. He didn't realize that that could also apply to meditation, to spirituality, to things. So he said that's when he began to practice Buddhism in this life, even though he'd been practicing 20 years. But up until then, he said there was no real practice, just looked like from the outside, but hollow. Because the 8 worldly dharmas mean you hope you get the job, you're afraid you won't. You hope you get this person, you're afraid if you don't. Just living life in an emotional roller coaster because we're attached to certain events all the time, and it's just like spinning in the head day and night, and it's the main thing that like really, so that is attachment. You know, and so we use it to try to be very negatively connotation in Buddhism. It means that instead of enjoying your life, enjoying your monk life, your relationships, you can't. You're just poison, just eating you up inside every day. Hope and fear and hope and fear. So it's just like constant. It's just constant. And to see that is an insight that's fantastic, you know. But that's basically how human beings spend their lives, is in the 8 worldly dharmas. Protecting their reputation. They hope they have a good reputation. They're afraid they'll have a bad reputation. It's all this kind of stuff. Hope and fear by being attached to this life. So he had this insight where he found this out in his practice, and it hit him like a ton of bricks, like, wow, okay. Okay, so my meditation, my study is engaged that way with hope and fear. So I need to clean that out, because the whole point of the spiritual path is to be free. So it's no use, you can be chained by gold or chained by silver. You know, chained by silver is like, okay, I'm chained to hope and fear about my job and my family and my money and things. Or I can be chained by gold, being chained to Buddhism, hope and fear. I hope I get that. I'm afraid I won't get that. Spirituality. You're still a prisoner. You just got a golden prison now of Buddhism. But you can't move. You still can't grow. So Lama Zopa has a book called How to Practice Dharma, about the 8 worldly dharmas, and it is like an absolute dagger. I don't recommend that to new people usually because I feel like it's being punched in the face or something, you know. It's so strong, but I love it. And you can hear it in the car. They have an audible where you can drive, and when you're driving, and then the teachings come, you know, and it'll play, and you can listen. It's nice. One Westerner reads it, an Englishman. And so it's just like, every once in a while we need that. How to practice Dharma, working with the 8 worldly dharmas from Lama Zopa. We need some kind of like tough love every so often, as we're describing. And whenever I read that book, I feel so humbled. And then I feel cleaned out. Like it's kind of like getting over an addiction. You know, if you're really addicted to caffeine or to alcohol or to anything, I don't know, cigarettes, it's not just like, oh, I think I'll just stop this today and it's all good. It's like, no, it's going to be nails on the chalkboard. Like, just, no, you're going to have depression, you're going to have longing, you're going to fascinate about that drug or substance, you're going to have all this stuff going on. And it's kind of like that with this teaching. It's just like letting go of a habit that's been with us for lifetimes, according to the Buddha, that really pollutes everything we do. So we're trying to let go of a very deep, nasty habit, and it feels like withdrawal. And that's the sign you're doing it right, as I mentioned before, with the practices Yangtze Rinpoche forces me to do every day. The sign you're doing it right is when you're going to have that feeling sometimes that you're shedding something that is unnecessary to your spiritual life. You're shedding it, and it feels like withdrawal. It's not the only sign. Good news, there's other positive signs too, but if you feel that, don't feel like you're like, oh, I have to go back, do something else. Buddhism doesn't work. You know, I'm having unwanted experiences, so it must not be working.
I have a question. I'm not clear what you're saying. I missed that little piece. What is that thing that the Lama was saying, or you were saying, attachment in Buddhism? What is that feeling of comfort? I missed that.
Oh, yeah.
What
We
is
say
that?
attachment to this life means that you're totally emotionally invested in the outcomes of this life.
In the Buddhist path?
Both Buddhist or non-Buddhist path, just life in general, that you're on a roller coaster of hope and fear attached.
What I'm asking is like, what was the discovery of the Buddha when he was praying, meditating, and he realized that he wasn't doing Buddhism? Like, I missed something.
Lama Zopa.
Lama Zopa, yes.
What was the realization? What was that?
That insight was that he was obsessed with temporary results. This life, 180-year period. He's not thinking in a vast, huge thing. He's in a drama about what's happening in just this life in a negative way. I hope I get this for the Buddhist Center. I'm afraid I won't get this for the new center we're building. That kind of thing. You know, like it's the same that we do at any job or with our family every day. It's normal. We need these things, right? You know, nobody, unless you're at that level, really has transcended this. So don't take it as a criticism.
No.
It's just the insight he had that, like, oh, I'm not relating to Buddhism as Buddhism. I'm thinking just about like drama in this life.
So, learning and living this, learning more and more and practicing, and so it's you get in like a level of more awareness of these 8 worldly dharmas, but also I notice that I'm much aware of what's happening with the others, and I start getting angry when I see, it's like, don't you see how attached you are? How, this is crazy. And I feel this anger. So what is your, how to work with that? Because it's also judgment.
Yeah.
So I'm getting better than you, I'm like understanding more, I'm getting more information, I'm seeing myself a little bit more with more perspective, and I see how crazy you are, guys. But at the same time, I'm judging.
Right.
And I'm trying.
Yes.
Yes. So I have a friend. He lives in Brazil. he's into one of these kind of spiritual path, the white gathering of spirituality, blah blah blah. They said that they're getting messages from Buddha and Jesus, and they have these channeling people telling the messages. So he calls me, like medium. He's like my brother from like childhood.
Wow.
So he calls me, and I said, no, you're wrong. And I'm like in this Buddhist path, and he said, Buddhism is so old-fashioned. How come you are following Buddhism? This is like from like 3,000 years ago. This is totally out of tune with reality. And I start like getting like, what? I'm on the phone.
I just started to read the news that he's really not in place.
I know. And I said, you are of reality. You need to go to the psychiatric ward right now. You are like listening to all these crazy people. But I feel my anger and my attack. And I said, how dare you criticize my path? My path. I was at least able to see the fire like growing inside this anger, and I was able, but at the same time I couldn't resist, and finally I just canceled the conversation. and I said, okay, you know what, you're totally crazy, you know. And he said, another sun is coming to the earth soon, and we have to be attentive to the signs that another sun. And I said, so tell me when the sun is coming. I need to be
like a child.
No, a real sun that is going to change the entire planet. Yeah, another sun. We're going to have two suns. Otro sol.
There's so many different things.
Okay, yeah.
There's so many.
But the point is,
Yeah, Norwegian sun.
but the point is, this attachment to the thing, and I was so like, I am right, and you should come to my teachings and meet my teachers, and then you're totally wrong. You know, you're wrong, I'm right. And I'm like falling into that on this spirit, and I said,
Oh, but it's hard. Like I was in Brazil last week, and then I was having dinner with a friend who's doing Lacan therapy, you know.
Yeah, Lacan, yeah.
In Argentina, it's
it's
a therapy that has no time to end. They talk and talk for hours, overanalyze everything. I'm sitting there and I'm like listening, and I was like, he's in complete suffering. He's overanalyzed complete. And I kept telling him he's wrong. I sat there and I listened, and I said, listen, I've been doing this different thing.
And you feel like you feel like you have to defend.
I felt
Buddhism.
You know, I felt kind of not sad, but I was like, okay, he has to keep going in this path. So I've been thinking, do I pack some books and say for the day that maybe you're ready to read them? You know, like is that codependence trying to save? So it's happening that now you feel like a little bit more awakened, and you start seeing the people in their own path. And I'm able to see it, but I'm able to also be quiet and say like, the Buddha thing is like you gotta let them spin their wheels, but the question is like, when do you intervene and say something? When is your compassion about? Do you listen quietly, or do you nudge a little bit? That's, I think.
Right, that is a very good question. I'm curious if Alex has anything to say about that.
I've definitely experienced that too, where you feel like you're having a conversation with someone and they're either talking about something that seems really like feels kind of wrong, and they're investing like a lot of energy and time into something where it's like, I don't know, that sounds. But at the same time, not wanting to be judgmental, and then at the same time being like, oh, it's like the exact thing that I could say that would get them to come to like this, the Buddhist center on the beach. And like here, like if I could figure out a way to like draw a nexus between this like weird thing that they're talking about, and maybe they could get into the right thing. So like my two feelings about it are, number one, there's a famous sutra that they don't study that much in the Tibetan tradition, but the sutra on a better way to catch a snake. Do you know? Familiar with it?
No.
And in one passage of it, the Buddha is saying, like, you know, so if someone came and like desecrated the place where the Buddha was staying, would you be angry? He's having an exchange with the monk. He's like, would you be angry? And he'd be like, of course, you know, I'd protect, you know, the place, you know. And he's like, and if someone came and like said something really harmful about me, you know, and said like, oh, the Buddha is, you know, like this is terrible, would you be upset, you know? And then monk was like, of course, you know, I'd protect you. He's like, and if someone came and like tried to harm me, like attack me, you know, would you like, you know, step in the way and try to protect me? He's like, of course. And then he's, you know, the Buddha explains like, you don't understand anything, you haven't understood anything yet, because you have all of this attachment to these you know, these trappings of Buddhism. So you've transplanted your attachment to something else. And then he gives a metaphor of someone who has to cross a river, and so he builds a raft, and then he uses the raft to go across the river. And then he's like, wow, this raft is so great, and then carries the raft on his back, you know, for the next, you know, for the rest of his journey, you know, another 100 miles that he needs to go off mountains and everything. But he's like, this raft is amazing. So like, it did the most, you know, the most important part. So he carries this like giant raft on his back. And again, like attachment to like, you know, oh, this raft is so great. I'm gonna show everybody this raft I made, you know. And so that's, you know, that's one thing. And then the other is just, my experience has been like, it's really, really hard to like give anybody advice, especially when they don't want to hear advice. But like Carl was saying, when you are in that place and you are living in a way that's aligned with the kind of Buddhist values and principles, people pick it up and ask you and come to you, and then you're able to offer something to them in a way that you kind of can't force, you know. So, and that just has, you know, scales. Like it's happened with people in my family and people in my life, and the better you are at it, and there's been like periods of time where like totally not happening. You know, people are like, oh, you're like really angry these days, you know. And then there's periods of time where like, oh, you're calm. What's going on? So I don't know. That's my experience.
That's beautiful, Alex. Wow, on the spot too, just like that. It's an amazing scholar. That's beautiful. Yeah, what I pick up from that I really like is we all go through phases, and even after we're Buddhist, of course, of being kind of down in the dumps or being up, you know. So that helps to look at the other person. Or maybe they're having a hard time now, but I've been like that like last week or a month ago. That helps to like compassionate outlook by putting myself in their shoes, exchanging self and other. But that's a great thing about not carrying the raft. Because we get so excited, we want to share with others, and it is frustrating. It is frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen from teachers like from you and Venerable Robina and Venerable Lamy and all these great teachers, what I've seen is they don't sell. They're not out selling, trying to catch you. It's just, okay, I buy this little bit, and then you are interested in buying another piece of the puzzle, and then another piece of the puzzle, because you're convinced that you want to buy it. It's not like they're sellers of Buddhism, which is, I mean, if the great teachers do that, I mean, why should we don't do the same? I mean, we should sell it, I think so.
Yes, great point.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The respect, I think, of what others are going through. I think it's very important of saying, okay, I think if it gives them something and they're making it a better person, why not? Why not? I mean, it doesn't have to be your path.
Right.
I think. I mean, I like Buddhism. It makes sense to me. The philosophy makes sense to me. But if somebody else is really learning, or I don't know if he was, you know, better. I don't know. But respectfully, just if they're doing their path and they truly believe it's the right way, and they're, you know, being happy, then why not? It just, I think it's respect a lot of it.
I know it's really important, and my wife and I were talking about it today, like falling in love with every living being. And not necessarily in like a projection love, in a negative attachment, but like really falling in love with every being. Like caring about them and really looking into each and every human being that you come across. And it's like, instead of being wrapped up in your sort of way of seeing things, you're so invested in practicing your passion for spirituality that it's not even coming to that level of judgment. It doesn't. That is. We have moments. Sometimes her and I will do meditations, and we'll have moments like that in meditation where we see each other with purity and respect, and then that like radiates through the rest of our day to the people we come across. And so whatever they're going through is like, oh, okay, yeah, I respect that's where you are on your journey, and good, yeah. So do you want to go have lunch now? Or like it's not even part of, like you're saying, the selling is not even part of the process. It's a different thing. But that's what came up in our meditation. We meditate together in the mornings when we can, when our son allows us to. So when we do, sometimes we come out of it with that attitude, do our prayers, do our meditations, that we may be in love with every living being. And so what the purpose of putting passion poetry onto that is like that you don't have it like, well, I like, or it's okay, I can tolerate people. It's taking it from tolerating to like an investment, an emotional investment in appreciating like all, I know like in Christianity they'll say appreciating all of God's creation or something like that. It's a beautiful idea that each one of these human beings are so amazing. They have so much to give and they all have their own unique gifts. It's incredible. Like, wow, look at how this being manifests. Look at what they're doing, you know? So we try to like have that sense of awe and wonder like a child, you know, and just try to remember that mind as adults when we're tense to look at others with some kind of something more than just tolerating them. Yeah, it's whatever words work for you is good, but the point should be that. Yeah. One of my teachers, he created a psychology Buddhist program in Naropa, in Colorado, and he wrote a book called Falling in Love with the Buddha. And it's about his life of serving his teacher and building this Buddhist psychology department and like working in that concept. Lukewarm, our enemy is being lukewarm. The enemy is to be flat and lukewarm about our spiritual journey. What we need is passion for our spiritual journey. Whenever you see any of these monks, it doesn't have to mean clearly a sexual passion because they're all celibate, but it means a passion for spirituality. You have to have that. Being lukewarm is the enemy of it, and so that pervades everything. Being lukewarm about other human beings you come in contact with, being lukewarm about your own is not good. You have to find a way to match up things to where you click and you say, yes, this is how I'm going to meditate, this is how I'm going to practice, and to you know, get enthusiastic. When you have enthusiastic perseverance, then anything can happen. Anything can come onto the path with you. It's so nice. You know, like you get all this energy. So, I don't know why I'm talking about this right now. But I'm very passionate about it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we should be done here soon, probably a long time ago. But so there's this beautiful way of putting it together, the three scopes of Buddhism, and there's a quote Rinpoche has I wanted to end with. If you cling to the appearances of this life, you are not a Dharma person. As long as you cling to the pleasures of cyclic existence, we have no renunciation. As long as we cling to liberation just for ourselves, we have no enlightenment. So it's taking you through the three scopes of the Lam Rim. You know.
Now I feel like I'm in minus 100. So
Yeah,
instead of in zero, I thought I was in zero. Now I'm in minus.
Can you repeat that?
Yes.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah,
You sure? I mean,
Depressing.
it's good. I can say something positive.
Say it again. It's fine.
Okay, As long as we cling to the appearances of this life as real, we are not a Dharma person at all. We're not practicing spirituality at all. As long as we cling to samsara, not just the appearances, but the inner emotional cycles of ignorance, attachment, and anger, we have no renunciation. As long as we cling to our own personal individual liberation and cling to it, then we can have no enlightenment.
With that,
And with that, have a good night.
we go to cling to my pillow.
I just thought I would...
I hope there's another side next week.
yeah. No, it's good. It's good to put those out there. But we do that. We study those stages and understand where we're not at yet,
Yeah.
and then we work through them.
Yeah.
And then eventually we take a refuge vow to dedicate to individual liberation, not just attached to this life. And then later we take the bodhisattva vow, dedication to others so that we can become enlightened, not just dedicated to our own individual liberation. So you take the ceremony with the Lama for the bodhisattva vow and dedicating to as long as time and space exists, you will dedicate your heart to awakening sentient beings from suffering, you know? You take this kind of passionate attitude of awakening in the ceremony and you really think of it. You get dressed up, you take it very serious and you go through the ceremony. Today is the day that I make a vow before my teachers and all the lineage that I'm dedicating to compassion for all of time and space and all my rebirths.
Yay!
It's a long marriage. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So we'll do a quick dedication prayer so that people can go home to their families and so they don't hate me and hate Buddhism, your families. We dedicate this short teaching tonight to the enlightenment of all suffering beings in Miami. All the physical hardships, economic hardships, disease, relationship problems, everything going on in Miami. Dedicate to all those beings, have happiness and peace. Dedicate to everyone in this country, in this world. And we pray also for yourselves, that you may find the peace you seek, and you may find the joy that you seek. So,
So
thank you. Really appreciate it.